Okay, I now notice how long this timer is. I'm gonna bring it down to like 3 minutes here. Hello there, everyone. This is No Name 117 Spore with a stream that's not gonna get any attention because it's at a weird hour of day, boring, and extremely impromptu, and nothing anyone in my audience is interested in. Oh, hold on. I was not supposed to have that. I'm supposed to have this on. I'm making it, or I'm doing a tier list. Wait, no, 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 no. You weren't supposed to see that. Anyway, yeah. I'm making a tier list. Hold on. I forgot to have something up on YouTube. Let me just quickly mute my desktop audio. Why do I have my desktop audio on? I don't need it on right now. Um, just I need to link the YouTube channel of the creator of this. So, actually, I will do that right now, so it's recorded on video. This tier list was created by Astro Kiwi. I have been, just in general, pretty interested in spaceflight. If you, I mean, first of all, if you notice, if you look at most of my graphics and stuff, and you know, go back to some of my older streams, look at the background before my well, any streams like before 2 weeks ago, and look at my desktop background, it was Kerbal. You look at what I've been doing for most of my time on YouTube. Um, a lot of the early stuff was Kerbal, before, the From the Depths and the Rule the Waves 2. there's some Spore in there too. But yeah, very interested in spaceflight, and saw that she made this tier list. And of a bunch of rockets, bunch of different rockets, and I thought, you know, I could do it. I could just do it for the fun of it, and to put my opinions out there, because nobody ever wants to listen to them, I guess. I don't know. I desire attention. Anyways. One thing which should also be noted is that for some reason, there are 3 starships in here. And I do believe these later 2 here were for a thumbnail, so I'm just not going to be including them. And I'll be doing this. I'll be ranking this starship, I will not be ranking these 2 starships. If I hover over it, does it actually say anything? I saw something pop up there. No? Oh. I was hoping to like be able to hover over the image and be able to see which rocket it is, because some of these I'm not immediately going to be able to identify. So, let's start. This, I do believe, this is Inertia. Yes, this is Inertia. That's one of the ones I can't immediately identify, but, you know, I know the name of it. Hold on. Let me, back to my Twitch page so I can actually see what I'm doing. Alright, Inertia, it's interesting. It had the chance to be a really, really good launch vehicle. But it didn't do much. It, flew twice, once with Buron, once without. I mean, it was promising. Inertia was promising, but it didn't go anywhere. D tier. I'll get back to Titan for later. Actually, I'm just gonna pick another random one out of this list and drag it to the front. So Falcon 9. Let's do Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is the first rocket I've seen in person. It has been my favorite rocket for a few years now. It's actually, interesting enough, the rocket which got me back into spaceflight. I would say I was originally into spaceflight about when the shuttle was flying, but I actually kind of lost interest, weirdly enough, at about the time of the Columbia disaster, I do believe. I would have been really young then, like 6, 7 years old. But didn't have as much of a interest after that. I think what happened was, I vaguely remember seeing the newspaper clipping, not of the failure itself, but of the launch, and having that in my room, like having that brought in my room, like a parent saying, "Oh, hey, cool, there was a shuttle launch," and you know that newspaper clipping was either brought into the room. There might have been like a time capsule thing which was done. That might have been in there. I'm not sure. And then having the disappointment of that, you know, being the launch which failed failed to re-enter a couple weeks later. But I kind of lost my interest in space, although it kind of waned. I did have some in like 2009-ish. I did do like a report on the Constellation program. Let's mention something there second. But it waned around then. I did get into Kerbal Space Program in about 2011 and really liked that game. So I guess, you know, I still was kind of into rockets, but not like into real rockets at that time. No, it was into designing them, but I wasn't really looking up, you know, what real rockets were, what they did, and started getting into I started making friends on Kerbal Space Program, and they were bringing, and I remember this was before Falcon 9 landed, they were bringing up that, you know, SpaceX was trying to land this rocket. And I didn't see the one where it actually landed. I think it was a couple launches before that, like 2014, sometime in 2014 maybe. 2014, earlier 2015 would have been when I caught the first Falcon 9 webcast. Didn't see it land, or it failed to land on that one. Then another one exploded. I missed that launch. Did I miss that launch? I think I missed that launch. And then, of course, there was the one which, you know, kind of... Or then there was one which landed, and I missed that launch. I caught the next one, though. I think I did catch the first landing on a drone ship on a webcast. And, you know, Falcon 9, first rocket I saw in person back in 2017, and I did get to see it land. That was cool. That was CRS-12. And, yeah, it's an excellent workhorse of a rocket. It's extremely cheap, pretty reliable. Um, it's a pretty rocket. It puts on a good show. It might not have the strongest achievements of all of these rockets, but as a workhorse, it's the best. S tier. I think Falcon 9's an S tier. So, I did say I was going to bring on something from the Constellation program. Hello. This guy here. I do believe this is Aries 1X. Aries 1, an interesting rocket. It's debatable as to whether it would have been dangerous or not, launching people just on top of an SRB. As a rocket overall, it's kind of mediocre to good, probably. As a people launcher, maybe mediocre to bad. But one thing I like about this is the concept of putting a liquid-fueled second stage on top of a large SRB. That is something I have a little bit of a soft spot to, because I've done that on Kerbal Space Program, and it's actually a pretty good approach in that game, just due to how cheap solid rocket boosters are. So, yeah, weird soft spot. I think that Aries 1X is a decent design. Lower B tier or high C tier? I'd go high C tier for now. I might mess with that in the future. Okay. Let me bring up the other rocket I've seen in person. Because I've only seen 2 rocket launches in person. The second one would be Atlas 5. And if Falcon 9 is, in my opinion, the best workhorse rocket, at least for America, Atlas 5's a close second. Atlas 5, it's not as cost efficient. However, it does have a very good approach in that they can just fit SRBs onto the side to change the payload mass. I do like that. And its reliability and accuracy has been absolutely great, and its launch cadence has been good enough to be considered a workhorse. Like, I mean, in terms of reliability, the Atlas 5 has, in like 80-something, is it 90 now? Launches, has only had 1 partial failure, and that partial failure was barely even a partial failure. I've seen it in person. I'm biased, too. And I do think, just as a workhorse of a rocket, as accuracy, in terms of accuracy, it's great. Another S tier. Easy S tier for that. Alright, looking at these again. Well, I think I've positioned the 2 things I wanted on the list in the positions I wanted them in. Actually, yeah, I think I have. There's probably some of these I'm going to do in a specific order. Like, I'm going to move Pegasus above that, launcher 1. Actually, you know what? Let's do Soyuz. Let's do Soyuz next. Because Soyuz is another workhorse of a rocket. It's Russian, but it's descended from their first orbital launch vehicles. Soyuz in its early days had some issues with the spacecraft part of Soyuz, not the rocket part of Soyuz. But I mean, for it to have been flying so long, it's good. On the other hand, I have watched a webcast where Soyuz failed. So, with people on board. They survived. Thank goodness. I think low S tier for Soyuz. Another good pick. Outside of this, Uh, which one should I do next? Which one should I do next? I'm trying to make some decisions whether I just want it to flow. You know what, where is... Because that's Titan 4. Where's Titan 3? Where is Titan 3? Because I want to do Titan 3 before I do Titan 4. Is that Titan 3? I think that's Titan 3, right? Is it? I think it is. Yeah, that's Titan 3. Or late model Titan 3, Titan 3E. So I'll do Titan 3 and Titan 4 at once. These are the rockets I'm probably the most jealous for not seeing ever. Because I went on YouTube, one day a video for, I think it was a Titan 4 launch, got recommended to me. And I watched it, all the way back from the last... It was either the last one or the second last one. Second last one. Like, 2003 to 2005-ish was when these rockets were retired. And holy crap! Like, it's only microphone audio quality, but you can tell that that rocket in real life would have sounded amazing. I really wish if I could time travel and watch one rocket launch from the past, I wouldn't go back to a Saturn V or a Space Shuttle. I would go back to a Titan 4. I'm going to put Titan 4 in A tier. I'm going to put Titan 3 in B tier. Alright, so now we have Pegasus. Pegasus. What went wrong? Pegasus is an air launch vehicle, or is an air launch vehicle. Now it's launched from a Lockheed TriStar, aircraft I do like, an airliner I do like a lot. So that kind of helps it. On the other hand, Pegasus XL is one of the most cost-inefficient launch vehicles to exist. If you take the price NASA paid for Icon and combine it with the Pegasus XL's maximum payload, it's like, what was it? How bad was it? Like $156,000 per kilogram to low Earth orbit. I mean, like, the shuttle in terms of program cost is $60,000 per kilogram. In terms of flight cost, it's more like $38,000. Falcon 9, when delivering cargo to the International Space Station, as a program cost for Sirius 1 was $80,000 per kilogram. For Sirius 2, I think it's closer to $95,000 per kilogram. This is $160,000 per kilogram. For dry mass to low Earth orbit, that is unreasonably terrible. I mean, at least it flies. I think Pegasus XL's high F tier. Like, I guess it's been decently reliable, but in terms of, unless Northrop Grumman can solve something with the cost inefficiency, it's legitimately, like, horrible in terms of the pricing. It's, I mean, part of that is there's not been much demand for it, but still. Ugh. Yeah. Launcher 1. Virgin Orbit Launcher 1. It's like Pegasus, but actually at a reasonable price. I think low B tier. Low B tier. I actually think that Launcher 1, at least of the flying small-sat launchers, is probably the best. Per kilogram, it's the cheapest, and can launch from a lot of locations. And, you can send it to a perfectly equatorial orbit. think Launcher 1 is the best of the small sat launchers. Hell, considering moving it to A tier. Although, there is one debate. Eco Rocket. Eco Rocket. Arca. Arca Easter Rocket. Easter Rocket. Okay, no. My brain right now is thinking Astra. For whatever reason. That's Astra. This is Arca. Arca Eco Rocket. These are completely unrelated. It's probably a scam. Eco Rocket is probably a scam. On the other hand, as a joke, I want to see it work. Just because I think that would be hilarious. I legitimately think it would be hilarious if Eco Rocket would work. I want to see what people on Twitter would think if Eco Rocket somehow actually flew. Okay, I'm not expecting... Okay, for the first launch of a small sat launcher from a new company, you should not expect it to work. As far as I'm aware, the last... What? How many times it has happened? Falcon 1, Electron, I think Launcher 1's first launch was a failure, Firefly, Astro. Yeah, I think the 5 most recent small sat launchers from a new company have, like, all failed on their first launch. Although maybe there was, like, one in China or something, which I don't really care about, I don't know. I don't have high hopes of Eco Rocket succeeding on its first launch. I don't have high hopes of Eco Rocket succeeding at all. But in general, as a small sat launcher, you shouldn't expect it to succeed on its first launch. However, I think it would be funny if Eco Rocket legitimately gets to a high altitude. And, you know, either gets to orbit or gets close enough to orbit that it's suddenly like, hey, this is viable. Let me quickly go here and just exit out of the Titan 4 and Titan 3 tabs I have on my other screen. I do have a bunch of tabs up so I can tell what rocket is what. Because a lot of these, some of these I hadn't heard of before, and some of these I'm not able to immediately identify. Other than Astra's rocket, I'm able to immediately identify. And, power side, what more do I need to say? I think C tier, actually. As a cheap rocket, it's a... you know, building a rocket that cheap and that portable is a pretty good approach, and the launch site is pretty picturesque. So, from that I like. On the other hand, it's really struggling to get to orbit. I want to see it get to orbit really badly. But, I don't know, it's struggling. Terran R. Actually, you know what? Let's not do Terran R yet. I'm not going to save Starship till last. I'm going to do Starship now. Starship, I think having a fully reusable rocket like Starship is a good idea. Actually, let me sort one more thing out here just so I do these in a specific order. I think Starship is probably a good idea. There's some risks that it won't have the launch market it needs. However, I think between Starlink and the current moon landing program, that really helps it out. It's really going to help it get a footing, and hopefully SpaceX can really get the cost down to anywhere near they promised. Honestly, like, the thing with Starship is Starship could be 10 times more expensive than what SpaceX has promised, and it would still be revolutionary. Like, that's how badly... Like, Starship's been massively overpromised, but that's how badly Starship can fall below its promises and still be an excellent rocket. It would need to fail really heavily to have issues. I don't see that happening. I think it's A tier. I'm gonna put Starship as high A tier for now. If it starts performing anywhere near its promises, then I think it would get moved up to S tier. Terran R. Terran R is like miniature Starship. I mean, it's by a new company, but the thing which Terran R has going for it is it's smaller than Starship. It's better suited for most of the current payload. Starship's really big, so you can just put whatever the hell you want in it. Um, but, Terran R could effectively replace more of the medium lift launch vehicles. And the inherent cost of launching with Terran R should be cheaper than Starship just because of, there's less fuel on board, there's less mass on board. Um, and it can carry less payload, but if Starship can't meet its payload requirements, Terranar probably can, and Terranar probably could get just everything going well for it. I think if Starship's going to fail, it's going to be as a result of Terranar. I you know what? I think Terranar is mid A tier. Vulcan Centaur. Another interesting rocket from ULA, designed to replace the Atlas V and Delta IV. It's going to be a lot cheaper than them. Again, significantly reduce the price, so I like that. Still sticking with the variable SRB approach. That's good. The only thing, and it's going to try to recover its engines, which for ULA makes perfect sense because they're optimizing for high energy orbits. And Vulcan Centaur is going to be, with Centaur 5 on it, it's going to be insanely well optimized for doing the interplanetary sort of missions. Whereas, say, Starship won't be, and the only way SpaceX is trying to get around that is by sending up a bunch of tankers and refueling them. Vulcan Centaur can just go. It even sounds like they're thinking about doing refueling on Centaur, or the Centaur 5, or eventually Aces. So I think Vulcan Centaur is probably pretty good. It hasn't flown yet, and I'm a little bit skeptical it's going to perform well at the start. ULA's done very well so far with their rocket reliability. The engines are untested. Well, they're tested on the test stand, but they're unproven. And that's kind of the concern I have with it. Plus the Blue Origin engines, so that kind of knocks it down. No, it's not F tier. I'm going to put it in lower A tier. It has a chance of moving up. Lower A tier for now has a chance of moving up. New Glenn. Okay, so the thing that I've seen with New Glenn it's going to be a methane first stage with a hydrogen second stage. However, from my understanding, the upper stage on New Glenn is actually thrust optimized rather than efficiency optimized. So you have a situation with New Glenn where it's using two different fuel sources, one of which, hydrogen, is difficult to handle. And with that hydrogen, it's not making use of its efficiency, but rather having to focus more in thrust because it's designed to be a semi-reusable rocket, and they have to rely on that upper stage to bring them more of their or a bigger percentage of their performance than if it was expendable. SpaceX gets around this by having either kerosene or methane upper stages. Kerosene with Falcon 9 and methane with Starship. And that allows them to have high thrust, high energy density at the cost of some efficiency, making them insanely well optimized for low Earth orbit and still pretty decently optimized for higher orbits. But ultimately, New Glenn's hydrogen upper stage is causing it's basically putting additional problems on the rocket and not bringing the benefits that hydrogen actually should be bringing. New Glenn is going to be launched in a launch market where presumably both Starship and Vulcan are already flying. And in terms of low Earth orbit, it's not going to beat Starship, and in terms of high energy orbits, I don't think it's going to beat Vulcan. It doesn't have any refueling capabilities, at least as discussed, or at least as planned right now. Which means that Starship could also hypothetically beat it with higher energy orbits too. because it's only a partially reusable. If New Glenn was introduced, 5 years, 5 years, maybe a little bit more than 5 years before its plan. Like if New Glenn was introduced, its first flight's planned for like late 2022, probably more 2023. If it first flew 10 years before that, it would be revolutionary. 7 years before that, still a strong rocket. But in 2023, I think it's just going to be outpaced a lot. And plus, there's also the whole Blue Origin thing right now where, Blue Origin's being really salty over the whole lunar contract thing. What was that? Said they lost lunar contract, or the lunar lander contract to SpaceX, and then they filed a GAO protest with the government, which I'm fine with that. SpaceX done that for lost missions. Usually, GAO protests get denied. That's I know other space companies have filed GAO protests as well. I think ULA's done that. I don't know. That's pretty typical behavior. But then, once they lost the GAO protest, they sued. And that is not typical behavior. Yeah. That's just not typical behavior for rocket companies in general. I've never seen that happen before. I'm not saying the rocket companies don't sue. I'm saying that they don't lose a GAO protest and then sue. They're basically putting in as many legal hurdles as possible, and also trying to do a smear campaign against, the lander, which won, Starship. And also just kind of not they're trying to go on the offensive without acknowledging the major defects of their system. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with New Glenn, but as a company, it's really left a sour taste in my mouth with Blue Origin. And plus, they've been saying, oh, we'll get to orbit, and right now, all they have is a tiny penis rocket. Let's rank the tiny penis rocket, New Shepard. It's suborbital and can fly people. I guess it vertically lands. That's kind of cool. Low C tier. High D tier. It's pretty middling. Yeah. I think I'm being generous with this down here. I don't know. You know what? I think New Glenn Z tier. Actually, no. I think it will be. I think it will be D tier. All right, Ariane 5. Ariane 5 is a heavy lift rocket for the European Union, or European Space Agency, ESA, and it's fine. I mean, it's kind of cheap. But it's not kind of cheap. It's kind of average price. Little cheaper than ULA. Slight reliability issues, and I'm not as big of a fan of Arianespace as I am of the American space companies. So, yeah, I think high B tier is good ratio. SRBX, this thing looks cursed. No. Alright, so we got, Saturn 1B is up next. I might skip that for now. Let's see. Let's do Mercury Redstone. Mercury Redstone, America's first attempt into space. Well, not first attempt. First attempt to get people into space. It was only suborbital. But, Yeah, it worked. It's pretty good. I mean, good accomplishment. Second to space, but still good accomplishment. I think that's B tier. Especially for the time. Let's bring Delta 2 to the forefront. Delta 2! Actually, no, let's get the rest of the Delta family. So Delta 2 is, that was a rocket originally by Boeing, then United Launch Alliance flew it for a bit in the twilight of its career. But it had a long career spanning, I think it entered service in like the 70s or 80s. Might have been the 70s. And was only retired like 3 years ago. And it was a bit obsolete when it was retired, but, to serve that long and be a workhorse for that long, that's excellent. And it also had the SRB approach around the side. Reliability rate of it was pretty good. Yeah, pretty darn good. It had one failure, which is probably one of the most spectacular rocket failures to have ever happened, and partial failure out of like 150 launches. Yeah, it's solid. I think low A tier. Low A tier is a good ranking for Delta 2. Oh yeah, it also carried Spirit and Opportunity. That was good. And had some other missions. Delta 4 Medium. Delta 4 Medium is basically just inferior Atlas, or inferior hydrogen-fueled Atlas 5. Like, both of the stages are just less optimized for the role, and it just didn't fly as much. High C tier. Delta 4 Heavy. It's been a strong heavy lift vehicle, and it literally lights itself on fire before every launch. Goes here. That's lower to mid A tier. Alright, you know what? Let's do Saturn 1B. And just to confirm, this is Saturn 1B, right? There is a Saturn 5 somewhere else in here. Right? Is correct? Yeah, there it is. Saturn 1B is the smaller test version of Saturn 5. I have to remember specifically what it did. I think I have it pulled up somewhere. Do I? Yeah, I do. What did it do? It launched 9 times, was successful in all of them. And I know they have one at the Kennedy Space Center. So, did some AS missions, Apollo 1. Apollo 5, Apollo 7. And then, yeah, did some Skylab missions. So, not a terrible rocket. And, probably underrated. Saturn 1B is probably a little underrated. There. I think IB tier. DCX, or Delta Clipper. Now, the question is, do I rank this by the prototype? Or do I rank this by the actual completed rocket? Let me just... Okay, no, okay. Or not the completed rocket, the end proposal. Because, like, the thing which Delta Clip, or DCX demonstrated was powered landings with a rocket. However, it did it at a very low altitude. It didn't go particularly high, didn't do anything, it didn't carry any payload, and as a concept, it really was a dead end. The problem is SSTOs just are not efficient. Like, they aren't fuel efficient, they aren't mass efficient. With maybe an exception. And DCX had the additional problem that it needed to land after the mission was done.
which needs more mass and more fuel, cutting into the payload capacity even further. So I am extremely, extremely skeptical that they could have gotten the actual rocket to work and be cost efficient in any sort of way. Yeah, I do not think DCX would have done anything. I think it's E tier for me. Put it above Eco Rocket though. That's a Chinese rocket. I gotta look up which one. Okay, that is the Long March 5. So is this the this okay, so this is the one. This one doesn't have hypergolics, right? It has it on the third optional third stage. But the rest of it's not like that. It's done some. Yeah, it actually has a. Looks like the launches it has are pretty good. It's lifted some space stations, building their current space station. And he hasn't had 7 launches so far. Done a lunar sample return, Mars orbiter. Yeah. Heavy lift vehicle. I mean, it's Chinese, so I'm gonna like it less. But, heavy lift launch vehicle with a good set of payloads. I think that's B tier. Minotaur! Minotaur, this rocket, I mean, does the whole peeling thing when it launches off the launch pad. It also goes really, really fast. These SRB, SRB based rockets. This one's based on ICBM. They zoom. This one zooms. Another one on here, which will come up later. Vega. I think that's this guy right here. Also does that. Yeah, I'll just bring Vega to the front. So the issue is that there's regulations limiting this rocket to only military payloads. Kinda think that's dumb. So Minotaur itself, it's not a rocket I have a huge amount of investment in. I think it's neat. I think it's C tier. I'm just trying to decide where. Here. There. And Vega. Vega is awesome. I mean, it's pretty cheap. It's also very fast off the pad with its SRB first stage. On the other hand, it's recently had a couple of reliability issues. A couple of them were lost, which isn't very good. I think Vega. I think it's high D tier at this point. It'll probably go up over time. Rotary Rocket. That time, they attempted to combine a rocket and a helicopter. Yeah. This one is one of those Chinese rockets. And I've got to look up which one. Is that a Long March 2F, or is that a Long March 7? I think that is. It's one of the two. Is it a 2F? Or is that something else? Hold on, I'm trying to figure out which one this is. Looks. Oh no, wait, no, that's not a Long March. It's Proton. Proton M. I do believe. Let me just check that. It is Proton M, right? Yeah, I'm pretty certain that's Proton M. Okay. Let me just find the other Chinese vehicles just so I'm certain. Get the other two long marches paired together. So that's a long march. Right there. That's Ariane Space. I don't know what this one is. The other long march. I don't know, that could be one. That's ESA. That's India. Pair the Indian rockets together. Ooh, where is the other long march? What is this guy? I don't know what this guy is. I'd have to look that up. What? Because there were 3 long marches on the list. Oh, there it is. There's the 2 long marches. So yeah, that's definitely Proton M. Proton M. Proton M is a you get what you pay for rocket. It is cheap. It has been cheap. And it has not been reliable. I think it's like something out of like 1 out of 11, 1 out of 12. If you adjust the partial failures to be half a failure, it's like that's its failure rate. You know, normally with rockets, you're expecting, you know, around about maybe 96 to 99% success. You know, you're looking at a failure, one failure in anywhere from like 30 to 100 launches. And Proton M is close to 1 in 10. On the other hand, it is cheap, it has done a lot, it's been in service for a while, and I have a weird soft spot for this rocket. Even though, you know, it's also fully hypergolic fueled. And also dangerous, and also had that one crash, which, if it had wound up in a different location, could have killed a bunch of people, but didn't because it got lucky. But I do have a soft spot for it. I think that's appropriate. I think that's an appropriate spot. You know what? Most of its failures, though, have been with the second stage, so I think it's going to go there. I'm going to put it above Vega. I like Proton more than Vega. Saturn Five probably has the greatest accomplishment that any rocket has ever done in terms of landing men on the moon. And it also launched Skylab and did nothing else. It's honestly, it got really glamorous missions and didn't do anything other than that. It wasn't needed for anything else. It couldn't really be defined as a workhorse, but I don't know, it's kind of like, how would you describe it? It's kind of like, I would say the pop star of rockets, but it's like, the stuff it did was actually good. I don't know, it's in Saturn Five, it's very good. It definitely belongs in S tier, but it's always seemed slightly overrated to me. So I feel like I'm gonna piss a bunch of people off when I do this. And put it below both Falcon 9 and Atlas 5. Alright, now we're on to the other 2 long marches. So one of these is 2 and one of these is 7. And I had to figure out which one is 2 and which one is 7, because one of these is going to wind up at the bottom of the list and one of them isn't. So the one with short boosters is 2 and the one with long boosters is 7. Long March 2 is a hypergolic fueled rocket that the Chinese drop its boosters onto villages. Need I say any more? Long March 7, on the other hand, is, I guess, a rocket. Kind of a replacement. It's better. It doesn't do as bad of stuff. Not flown too many times. It probably needs to prove itself a little better. Gonna do that little swap. SLS. SLS. It's a weird one. It's one a lot of people have very staunch opinions over. But I think it's a fine rocket. Okay, so the issues, in my opinion, with SLS is that it's really a rocket which should have been in service a lot earlier. Like, the tech, SLS, or at least a rocket similar to SLS, is the type of rocket that should be in the twilight of its career right now. It shouldn't be about to launch. Um, it's shuttle derived, and that's kind of why. It's a rocket we should have had a while ago. So the issue I have with SLS is basically that it feels like it's late. And I mean, part of it is it's descended from the Constellation program, which already itself kind of felt slightly late. And I mean, yes, that program got canceled, and its main rocket, Aries 5, kind of got reconfigured into SLS. So I think SLS is good. It's needed. It's very. It is a needed rocket to go to the moon. You cannot do it. Okay, you probably could come up with a way to do it alone using or to do it alone using Starship along with either Falcon 9 or Atlas 5 or Falcon Heavy or something. But the mission you'd come up with would be extremely complicated. Doing that, and there's no way that NASA would have been able to predict what rockets would have been available by the time SLS would have been flying. Because when they were conceiving of it, in say, 2010, early 2010s, hell, descending it from the Aries 5, which dates back all the way to like 2000, it's, it wouldn't have been able to foresee that. It's not S tier for me. But I think it might be B or A tier. I would like him. I like it more than Arion 5, I would say. But I like it more than Delta 2 and Delta 4 Heavy. I think I do. So, this guy is Jupiter 4. This is... No, not Jupiter 4. Jupiter 3. And this was not actually a rocket I knew about before the video. So, this thing sounds like something somebody would have built in Kerbal Space Program. And I kind of love it for that. On the other hand, this seems like just another kind of crazy prototype or not prototype, conceptual rocket which just didn't go anywhere. Wasn't built because it, was massive and didn't have much of a role. Maybe just people trying to come up with something. Interesting idea. But I do think these sort of concepts are overrated. But let's bring up another one here. Because I know it's on here. There's a similar one. Sea Dragon. The Sea Dragon, you know what? I'm gonna take this guy and move it down there. There we go. I think that's a better position for my thoughts in Jupiter 3. Sea Dragon was another one of these concepts for just a really massive rocket launched from the ocean, built in a shipyard, and I think it was designed to be reusable. And honestly, although it never flew and never had a reasonable chance of flying, for all the crazy rockets out there, I think Sea Dragon is actually a very good choice. I'm putting it in S tier. I like Sea Dragon. The Space Shuttle. My opinions of the Space Shuttle have really soured in the past few years, due to arguments. I mean, primarily due to arguments on Twitter and YouTube. But the thing I don't like with the Space Shuttle is, okay, fine. You know, it's a beautiful rocket. You have to say that. Space Shuttle is a beautiful rocket. It's iconic. It's inspiring. You have to say that. But it wasn't safe. And actually, it was not safe. It was required to fly with crew every single time and had no real ability to get them off the vehicle. Technically, like, the first couple shuttle launches had ejection seats, and that's not even a particularly good idea. Not a safe vehicle. Ultimately, in the event of engine failures, okay, it could have one engine failure and be fine. 2 engine failures was risky. And 3, if the SRBs were still attached, it had triple engine failure, it was death. And even the procedures for having multiple engine failures were incredibly dangerous. And it's just all of the danger with the shuttle, and there were so many missed promises with it as well, in terms of how much it was supposed to cost versus how much it actually costed, how much it flew, how dangerous it was, prohibiting it from flying a bunch, and really getting that launch cadence up and getting the launch cost down. A lot of deception from NASA, actually, about how much the program truly cost. That's another thing I really don't like. NASA's always trying to make it seem like the shuttle wasn't as bad. Like, oh, no, it's doing $20,000 per kilogram, when in reality, it's like, that number is kind of made up. The actual recurring cost is, again, closer to $40,000 per kilogram. Which I think they say like $16,000 per kilogram, when the actual recurring is like, $38,000, and the program cost is like $60,000 per kilogram. Maybe a little less than $60,000 per kilogram, hypothetical. It's not a good rocket. It didn't really have a chance to succeed. It was retired at the right time. I'll give him that. If they had continued to try to operate the shuttle, at the point it was at in like the 2010s, without any commercial payloads, doing 2 ISS resupply flights, maybe an occasional third Hubble servicing mission, the cost for those flights would not have fallen significantly below the overall average program cost of the shuttle. So the only way that the shuttle could have performed better would have been by adding more flights onto the years it was in service, too. It's not even something like where the shuttle could be hypothetically better, or have been hypothetically better had they continued to use it. It's just held back by a lot. I think the shuttle's C tier for me. I'm not a shuttle fan anymore. I'm not really a shuttle fan. Okay, this is some small sat launcher. I'm not sure which one. That one's going to the rear because I don't know what it is. Specifically, this guy is going there, this guy's going there, this guy's going there. I know what this guy is, know what that guy is. That guy, that guy. That guy, no, that I know. This is new one I heard of, that I know, that I know. Move that one down. I'm just moving the rockets where I don't know what they are down to the bottom. Actually, no, I'm gonna just put the two excess Starship pictures here. Just kind of split this up. Alright, so PSLV, the Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle out of India. It's a decent rocket. I like it. It's fairly cheap. Yeah, that's good. Decent reliability, decent performance. I mean, decently cheap for polar. Decently cheap with polar orbits. Pretty good. I think it's a solid Indian workhorse. Yeah. The GSLV. Yeah, I think this is the GSLV. Let me just double check. Ah. Where is it? So I'm trying to figure out if this is the GSLV 1 or 3. Is that the GSLV? Or is that... Oh no, that is the GSLV. I think that's the GSLV Mark III, looking at it. Which is the better version of the GSLV, geostationary satellite launch vehicle from India. It's good. But I think it's a little less proven than the PSLV. I don't like it as much. I'm putting it there. It needs to prove itself more. If it once it launches more, it'll probably go up. Um, so I think these two are both Ariane space. And I'm trying to figure out which one is which. One of these is Ariane 1, one of these is Ariane 4. Okay. Ariane 6 is also on here too. Let me get Ariane 6 to the pack as well. Okay, so this is Ariane 4. I think that's Ariane 1. Yes, okay. Yes, that's correct. So you got Ariane 1, Ariane 4, and Ariane 6. Ariane 6, I think, is a worthy successor to Ariane 5. So I'm going to start with that. I think Ariane 6 will probably go there. It's not as cool. It doesn't have the charm of lighting itself on fire. But I think it'll be a solid A-tier rocket. Ariane 1 and Ariane 4, I've actually got to look at what these rockets did. They seem kind of mediocre to me. Ariane 1 and Ariane 4, I'm going to Wikipedia quickly. Okay, so Ariane 1 was first flown in 1979. Didn't have all that great of a success rate. Yeah, that's the one where it's kind of like, oh, let's send a pair of satellites up at a time. And 4, I guess, existed. It had a lot of launches, pretty good, pretty decent reliability. But just kind of mediocre. Hungarian 1's probably worse. Hmm. I think they're both C tier. Venture Star. So this was another SSTO proposal. Back in the 90s, kind of like Delta Clipper. Venture Star, however, was planning on landing with wings. It would have had some similar issues to Delta Clipper, but probably had a better shot, and was also larger and also looked a lot cooler. So it has more benefits to Delta Clipper. I think there was a legitimate shot with Venture Star. I think C tier. C tier is a good rank for it.
Kistler K1. This was an interesting, fully reusable rocket idea. So back in the early 2000s, well, mid 2000s, this was kind of one of the big commercial satellite possible launchers at the time. One of the ones in development alongside SpaceX, and them and SpaceX kind of sparred early on, as Astro Kiwi described in her video, doing this tier list. It's the perfect way to describe it. Um, Ultimately, Kistler's rocket was a really interesting concept. But Kistler just never got the funding it needed to, yeah, it just didn't get the funding it needed to ever launch it. Uh, it's an interesting what if, but I think it is limited to that. It's limited to being a what if. I think it goes down in D tier. Mercury, or Mercury Redstone. No, Mercury Redstone. No, Mercury Atlas. Sorry, Mercury Atlas, or no Atlas. The original Atlases in general. I actually like these rockets. 1.5 stage rockets with a what was it? Balloon tank, basically. Very interesting design, very lightweight design, based off a missile. I think in the it launched people. This one launched people into orbit, I think, right? Did it? Let me just look. Mercury Atlas. Mercury Atlas go to orbit. Uh. Yeah, you got to orbit. You know what? That's good. It's a good early capsule on top of a good early rocket. I think that's a solid high B tier. Falcon Heavy. Falcon Heavy has the potential to be one of the best rockets flying. And it's flown 3 times already. But Falcon Heavy's kind of currently in that lots of spectacle, little substance phase. Right now, it has a lot of launch contracts for the future. There's like 12, I think. It has like a dozen launch contracts for the next few years. It's going to get utilized. But right now, it's only flown 3 times, and one of those was a Tesla. Like, one of those was a test launch, and the other two weren't anything particularly noteworthy. And it also has the issue where it's designed to be, it's designed to have 3 cores, be reusable, but so far, in terms of recovering the center core, SpaceX is 1 for 6, which is really bad when you consider that the rocket has only launched 3 times. And as such, only 3 center cores have actually flown. I think this could move up to S tier, but I don't know, feels like A tier for me. You know what? I'll put it there. I think that's a good spot. That's a good spot for Falcon Heavy. I think it'll move up sooner than that. I think Falcon Heavy will move up to S tier. Alright. Firefly Alpha. I believe that is Firefly. If I am correct. Let me check. Just exit out of the tabs I have. Yeah, that's Firefly. That's the one which exploded.
Interesting thing with Firefly. Me and my friend group were talking about or trying to predict how the rocket would fail on its first launch because it was a small sat launcher. Of course, it was going to do that. And I mean, I went to their page, looked it up, and saw that their engines were only single axis or axis gimbals, and basically thought this rocket's going to have an engine failure, which will either. I said it would. I was guessing it would probably result in a control failure, although I did mention the possibility that if it happened early on, it could result in a loss of thrust failure. And in terms of predicting the failure, both of those things are spot on, because it basically had a loss of thrust. It lost an engine early into flight, had a major thrust issue getting to altitude, and then when it went transonic, had a control failure because the remaining engines just couldn't gimbal well enough. Firefly Alpha, it's got promise. I did not mean to do that. Okay, thankfully it's kept my list. Let me put everything back where it belongs. There we go. Thankfully everything's still ranked. I really hope that didn't reveal any, like, location ads. Because I'll have to edit that out if it did. Let me just add a stream marker here, so I know to go back and check that. So yeah, Firefly Alpha. I mean, the fact that it's flown helps. The fact that it's failed hasn't helped. I think it'll be decent, but I don't think it's as good of an approach as some of the other small sat launchers. This one's like 3D printed though, partially, I think. Yeah, I think C tier. So these are another couple small sat launchers here. I'm trying to figure out which one is which. Okay, so I have to be on the lookout for Myria 5, Orbex Prime. This is Orbex Prime. This is Orbex Prime. So, what is Orbex Prime? I don't know this one. So this is, oh yeah, this is the Scottish small sat launcher. Goes to new orbit soon. It's meh. Get another C tier. Okay, so this one is, which rocket is this? There are multiple launchers of this sort. Okay, so that is Myria 5. That's the ESA one. I think the ESA one's going to go lower than that. Let's get the other small sat launchers in. So, Aries, that's a Rokat. That's Terranar. Something else. That's Falcon 1. And I don't know what that is. That. What is that additional one? Oh, so where's Angara? Oh, there's Angara. Helios? I know Helios is on this list. One of these is Helios. This might be Helios? Okay, so I think... Yeah, this looks like Helios. Helios is a nano satellite launcher. Well, that's actually a cool concept. I'll put it there. Rokat. Rokat has the benefit that it's flying, but I think it's less charming than one out of Scotland, but more charming than one out of the Union. That is Electron. That one's already flying. It's already doing pretty well. It's going to be reusable. Actually, I think Electron can probably... I think this will be more cost efficient than Electron eventually, but right now Electron is the better rocket. Oh, Electron might have issue. You know what? Low B tier for Electron. So this is Terran 1. So another 3D printed rocket from Relativity. I might put it there. So then this guy is ISAR Spectrum, right? Or Spectrum rocket? What is Spectrum? Seems like another generic small set launcher. Care about this probably the least. I don't know, all these generic small set launchers are all these generic conceptual small set launchers are kind of in the same tier for me. Just, I mean, Rokot's flying. You know what? Rokot's flying, that puts it above them. It puts it above the rest of them. If the rocket has flown, it's going to be above the ones which have or not flown. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those haven't flown yet. But Rokot's flown, Firefly's flown, Astra Rocket 3.0's flown, and Electron has flown. And also in the flying category is Falcon 1. You know, that got SpaceX started. It took a few attempts. It eventually succeeded. I think that's another C tier for me. It's not the greatest rocket. It had the failures it had early on were kind of weird. It could have probably gone on to have done good things, but SpaceX didn't really let it. But it did prototype the Merlin engine, and I really like the Falcon 9. So kind of having that, having that predecessor to the Falcon 9, I think I'm going to take it over most of the other small sat launches. But I still think that this and this are better concepts. Okay, part of me is like, I could put Electron over Virgin Orbit, but I think Virgin Orbit's just better. Gonna be better. And Aries is pretty much the most mediocre rocket you can think of. Where do I put the most mediocre rocket you could ever think of? There, that's where I put the most mediocre rocket you can ever think of. Then we have Angara. This is a Russian launch vehicle, which they want to replace their current fleet of launch vehicles, and it hasn't flown very much, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of momentum behind it. This kind of feels like another one of those overpromised Russian rockets, where they promise something and then it just doesn't develop a lot. The inertia is in the same boat, and another one mentions probably going to be in the same boat. Russia needs to make some decisions about where they're going to go with their rockets, because right now it seems to be trending towards them continuing to use Soyuz forever. Nope. This is Black Arrow. This was UK's, or the United Kingdom's original rocket. Uh, looks like lipstick. And it didn't do much. They tried to launch it, and they launched it a few times, I think, and just didn't do anything with it. I'm gonna skip these two for the moment and get the remaining conventional rockets out of the, or semi-conventional rockets out of the way. H2, I believe specifically H2B. This is Japan's rocket. It's done some good missions. It's done the H2 series has done the Hayabusa missions, and JAXA's done well. I think it's a solid B tier. You know what? I should do that. I'm gonna shift PSLV down here. I think that's a better spot for PSLV. I'll put H2 next to it. Soviet N1 rocket. So far the largest or heaviest rocket ever flown. Largest or heaviest, I don't know. It's something. It has one of the records. Never succeeded, but I mean, come on, it's awesome. It's giant, had a lot of thrust. It's awesome. On the other hand, I think it is kind of stuck to A tier, although it did fly. So, low A tier. Otrag. This is a really strange rocket concept, which was come up with, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan. It looks ugly. I'm kind of doubtful it would have worked well. It's also got some. Well, part of me is like I should accuse it of ties to Nazism. That being said, we kind of did get Nazi scientists and put them on, Saturn Five program and probably Atlas 5. Not Atlas 5. What am I saying? No, Atlas 1 or not Atlas 1. The original version of Atlas. Atlas Mercury. Atlas Redstone. Redstone Mercury. Or Mercury Redstone Mercury Atlas. Yeah. Would have been on those. But even so, there's some stuff about Otrag that just kind of makes me go, eh. We got Neutron down here, Rocket Lab Neutron. A very interesting proposal for basically a FET Falcon 9. In your future, I think it's methane fueled. And I mean, Rocket Labs is a fairly good company. I think they can deliver on Neutron, and I think it'll be good. I don't think it'll be a world. I don't think it'll be necessarily a world beater, but I think it will compete. It would compete pretty solidly in the current launch industry, and there's a chance it could come too late. But I think it'll have a chance when it comes into service. I probably don't like it as much as Delta 4 Heavy, but I like it more than Ariane. Alright, this is... whatever this is the Russian... the kind of Russian Falcon 9 copy. It's unoriginal, it's Russian. Russia has been promising a lot of rockets and not sticking to any of them. You get D tier. Alright, so now we get into the two remaining space planes, and then these two images are just going to stay here because they were for a thumbnail for the original video creator. The original creator of this tier list did a video for the original thumbnail, and I'm not putting them on. So, we have, what is this guy again? This is Dawn Aerospace's. So they're planning on the Mark II and then the Mark III. So the Mark III is supposed to be an orbital launch, or an orbital launch vehicle. I don't know specifically how they want to make that work. If it's something where it's an SSTO, or I would be guessing it's something where they have a small stage inside of the Mark III and launch that out. Using the airplane as a first stage, and probably a bit more effectively than in the cases of Pegasus or Launcher 1. But I've never heard of it. Never heard of them. Apparently they do have a prototype plane, but I don't know. I'm a little skeptical it's going to go anywhere, or it's that promising. It just winds up being another small sat launcher. But, it's more original. More original than some. I'll put it there. C tier. And then we have Skylon. This is the last SSTO. So when I was talking about DCX, I said that SSTOs are kind of a dumb idea, with a possible exception. And Skylon is that possible exception. Where instead of going with the approach of having all of the oxidizer on board the rocket, they basically have air-breathing rocket engines. So they take a bunch of the oxygen out of the atmosphere to use as their oxidizer. And once the rocket gets to a certain altitude where that's no longer possible, then they switch to internal oxygen. And that should reduce the amount of liquid oxygen they actually have to carry on board the spacecraft. And because of that, actually potentially makes this a possible decent SSTO. So, the problem with Skylon is it's just not funded particularly well. However, I do like it, and I want to see it succeed. I think it has a shot. And it's a concept I really like, even if, it's probably not gonna work, truthfully. Or even if it's probably not gonna come to fruition. I like it. Let me just go over this one more time, see if I kind of have everything placed where I want to have it placed. Yeah, I think that's my tier list. This would be how I'd rank all the rockets on it. Okay, if I was to think about other rockets, let me just quickly think about other rockets to add to this tier list. So, one thought is one of the early Titan models. Like what the hell was that? No, like one of the really early Titans. I'd like to see that. There were some other notable missing things. There's a lot of conceptual rockets on here. A lot which haven't flown a lot. I'm trying to remember. Like a couple more I was thinking of. Probably should be on the list. Oh, Vostok. I would love to see Vostok on the list. A couple Ukrainian rockets as well. Because I think if Mercury Redstone is on here, Vostok probably should be too. Uh, let me look up Vostok. Oh, not Vostok. Let me look up Ukrainian rockets. Because I think there were a couple. Oh, wait, no, maybe R7 derived rockets. The R7 rocket family, because I think there were some more here. Okay, oh yeah, they had Sputnik. So there was Sputnik and then Vostok. I guess I'd like to see Sputnik on the list. I think Sputnik would be good. Vostok would be good. And maybe also, Molnia. Molnia could be cool, too. Oh, I guess it does kind of all factor into Soyuz. But I think Vostok, at least one more Soyuz variant deserves a mention, whether that be Sputnik or Vostok. Or, Molnia. There's another one. Another, like, hold on. List of... Yeah, list of orbital launch systems. I feel like they could probably get more of the Chinese, or she could probably get more of the Chinese rockets. There's a lot of different long marches of different variants. It actually is pretty confusing. But there are certainly multiple models of them, even if it is. That would be really confusing. I can understand not having Arion 2 and Arion 3. What was Europa? Sorry, I just looked it up. Europa is apparently a thing. I guess GSLV Mark 1 wouldn't be bad to have on there either. Have GSLV Mark 1 and Mark 3 since they are two completely different rocket systems. Uh, H2 is a good choice. Maybe H1 would have been a good pick for Japan as well. I don't know if you'd want any of the Moos or Ns from Japan or Lambda. So Epsilon. How about the Soviets? I'm just looking through. Oh, Zenit. Zenit would be a good choice. That was what I was thinking of. Zenit and Nepper. Nepper and maybe Cyclone, or one of the two. Either Nepper or Cyclone. I want to see Zenit. Apparently, South Korea has a set of rockets. The KSLV 1 and 2. Oh, Maria 5 is a Spanish rocket, not an ESA. Uh, out of America. Oh, Athena. Yeah, there was Athena. Conestoga? Yeah, Athena, Conestoga would be interesting. Omega. Omega would have been interesting, because that's canceled. Omega's canceled now, but that would have been a really interesting one to put on the list. Saturn Shuttle would have been interesting. Thor. Ooh, Thor. Thor should have been put on the list. Yeah. I think Thor should have been on the list too. Alright. Anyway, that is my list. I'm trying to think if I want to. I did promise some Kerbal Space Program, so I will probably hop into Kerbal Space Program. I'll need to take a short break first. I'm going to probably. Okay, I'm just gonna briefly turn off my display. Well, okay, I'm gonna print screen this, turn off my display capture, save it. I'll just download the image. Okay. And now that I can move that over to my other screen, I can just put the display capture back up. So, and now that should show. Yep, there's the tier list I made. And let me post this to Twitter real quickly, because that was kind of the point of this. Okay, not even having a count on this, that kind of doesn't help. Okay, anyway, I think I will be right back on this screen, and when I return, I think it'll be Kerbal Space Program. Actually, let me just boot up Kerbal Space Program. Okay. Let me just exit out of that and boot up Kerbal. And go over to streaming Kerbal Space Program. Hold on. I gotta do that, do this, and toggle on the be right back here. Alright. It'll boot up, and hopefully that'll be good. And I'll do something there if anybody wants to watch.
All right, after that bit of a break on this very disappointing stream, which nobody's caring about, because I'm not playing any warship game. We'll go in and do a sandbox here. So what I've been working on is I have a few mods installed right now, not too many. Uh, what I was planning on doing is this thing. Okay, there's this YouTuber I was watching a while ago, Big Mathis, who does videos in Besiege, where he has aircraft, usually some form of like airliner, cargo transport, or helicopter, and then fires weapons at them or collides them together and then tries to emergency land them. And I was thinking about doing something like that in Kerbal Space Program. Uh, I've done some experiments. The results so far are not promising as to me being able to actually create a compelling video out of that. It's possible. It's possible I won't be able to do the recording on that because for whatever reason my computer has not liked this, even though my GPU is like really good. GPU like my GPU blows the GPU of the guy who would be doing this for me, would be recording the videos out of the water because for whatever reason he's getting better performance. I'm wondering if it's a CPU or RAM issue. On my end, possibly a cooling issue, but I'm not sure. It just seems a little weird. Well, anyway, I just want to build a rocket today. But I don't know what kind of rocket. I want to build something strange, if that makes sense. But I'm not sure what. I want to build something with some reusability. Too. Uh, but again, I'm still not quite sure what I want to build and how I want to build it. Hmm. Like, what sort of spacecraft do I want? Like, I could do a small shuttle sort of thing. That could be cool. Maybe take the Huey cockpit and modify this into some form of space shuttle. Although, let me put this on the ground and just kind of see where the Kerbals exit out of it. Be interesting as like a small shuttle sort of thing. I think I'll try it. The Huey shuttle. Alright, so they exit here. That's good to know. So I do have to leave this unobscured. If I am going to build something off of this, then I'm going to need to have it somewhat protected. It would be really nice to have a underside to that. My thought would be let's decrease the diameter a little bit. Oh, could this work? Maybe. Probably shouldn't have any fuel in it. Hold on, these are flat sections. Fortunately, none of them are curved. Like, here's what we can do. Okay, so these are both empty. Alright, let's put a nose cone on it. I don't think that's gonna look great. You do this. Stack that. Put that on the underside. So that I can kind of paint that side like a heat shield. Although, I want to move this away so I can do... Part of me wants to do this. But that's only going to be liquid fuel. There's not going to be any solid fuel in that if I do it that way. So one thing I should probably do... Got this like this. Which I know how to... I know how to accomplish this. What I'm looking to do. Alright, so put that there. Okay, yeah, that'll get me the nice tiled underside. Alright, so then... Okay, so I'll put that there. I'm going to reduce the amount of monoprop in it. And then on the other one, do this. And paint this with rust paints. That'll just look a little better. I'll adjust the colors manually. Okay, that's a little ugly. A little bit of Z fighting there. Who cares? It'll go away once I'm actually flying it. You know what? I'm gonna call it the huddle. Or I'm gonna add, no, a hutel. for now. That's what I'll be saving it as for the moment. Okay, how do I want to handle the payload bay? I think that's the question for me at the moment. Would probably... That's kind of that fuselage looks like, but then this is the cargo bay. So it would probably wind up being best to do something like this. I think my next thought is to do, where is it? This. Just put this guy on here. No liquid fuel in these guys. Because there's a small gap. Who cares? Okay, so if I open that, let's take this and just shift it down until that's below the floor, and then take this guy, shift it down to... There you go, that'll work. Or, you know... Eh. As I do this, maybe angle this slightly this way. And I'll work on some wing panels to kind of smooth this out a little bit. Okay, so that should work. Now I just gotta shift these back a section and get this to smoothly transition into them. So like that would work. The other thought is that instead of doing that, I go to payload bay. Let's try this guy. Actually, yeah, scaled down, that works perfectly. Actually, you know what? I can shift these back up again, so let's just do that. Okay, take this.
Yeah, you know, that'll work. Hmm. How big of a payload bay do I want? Do I want like a 4 times here? I think I want a 3 times. Although, probably want the docking port more forward. Then, you need to figure out how to transition out of this piece properly. It's always a difficult part to figure out how to do that. Want something instructional at all? Probably not. Yeah, no. It's gonna be in fuel tanks, I bet. The specific part I want... Probably want, like, this guy. Or I go with this. Okay, that kind of works. Should I move him more in? Okay. So then we need the engine section. So one of the main benefits of the original Space Shuttle was that it could take the main engines home. But I'm thinking about doing something weird for this, where it can't do that, where I do like a 2.5 stage sort of thing. Okay, those are only liquid fuel, right? None of those have any... what is it? Brain, think, function. Oxidizer on board. I need oxidizer, so. I should probably mention that I have Kerbal mods. I'll probably get you guys the mod list if you need. Seriously though, there is part of me which just isn't wanting to bother with main engine recovery. And then use this purely as an upper stage and shuttle. I might do that. So if I was to do that, I'll probably have an upper stage on this of some sort. A good upper stage. Wolfhound's pretty good. I can scale that down. Okay, and I feel like what I would do is I would put a decoupler on this. That big of one. Coupler's like mounted really, really low. And then below this, I would mount a separate section of engines. Um, just trying to figure out how best to do that. So I'd probably want a aerodynamic nose cone like this guy, bigger. And we don't want massively expensive engines, but we do want ones with a good gimbal range. So we don't want like these guys because they are costly. Probably something with a good low altitude ISP. Swivels can swivel a bit. How far? 3 degrees. You can't. You have a 10.5 degree vector range. You have no vector range. Mainsail. How much does a mainsail have? 2 degrees. Skipper's 2 degrees. Poodle's 5 degrees, but those are high altitude engines. Skiff is 2. Bobcat. Bobcat's 5. Bobcat's not bad. I can't really mount. I feel like I'd mount them kind of to the side like this. I guess I could do that with shrunk down Bobcats. Other thoughts on what other engine options are available for this? These are all jet engines. I mostly have jet engine mods right now. I think that's about it, unless I want like a side engine, like one of those guys, which I probably don't. I need to get another engine mod set at some point. Fair, and scale it down. So this will be hypothetically attached to the external tank that the Hutel will be mounted on the side of. I'll take this and stretch it back, get the that looking okay. Well, I might not stretch it back any further because I might rely on wings after this point. Yeah, I think I'll just rely on wings. I don't know. Having this sort of structure here might still be good. I don't know how to wind that down. What's up, legendary Curbs? Hey, Midnight. I'm just doing a little bit of this. Just building this, and then I'll probably be done. I mean, I'll build it, launch it a couple times, and make sure it works. So there's still some good time left to the stream. This is just an impromptu stream for something else, and I needed to add something of value to it at the end. Is that something of value? Okay, you know what? So I'm going with an extremely weird space shuttle sort of design here. Just to see how far I can clip these in before I start having issues. About that far. Well, I probably want to mount this more here-ish. Okay, there is going to need to be some sort of structure down here to check the engine during re-entry. Ideally.
can't have it clipping this section here. And kind of do this. There, that looks cursed. Alright, I got P-Wings installed, so I should probably use some of those. Although I do want, I don't know, some sort of shielding back there. Just gotta figure out specifically what that'll be. It's kind of going specifically from here to here. Can I use any fuel tanks for that? Radial mounts for liquid fuel. Wait, how good are these guys at resisting heat? Probably not that great, actually. Okay, we need to wind this down somehow. I think that's a good way to do it. You know what? Do this, shift it upwards to about here. Yeah, this is weird. This is looking weird. Alright, let me find... where is it? Procedural Wings. Cool. Alright, I'll play around with those in a moment. Actually, we should probably have a tail of some sort. You know what? No, I'm gonna put it at the edges of the procedural wings, because I think that would be fun. There's probably no point in having any flaps on this thing, because it'll wind up being a glider once it re-enters, so... yeah, no. Actually, edge, this... Oh, is this gonna be something where I have to color both the surfaces? I need two wings for this, aren't I? One for the top, one for the bottom. Ah, that's annoying. But I might put some monopropellant in the wings. Screw it. Let me open these just to be sure that I have room for what I'm doing. Okay, I think this needs to be a little bit more here-ish. Alright, so... maybe we can build the back end of the wings first. Mount them on there. Still need something here. Actually, you know what? I think what's going to go there is also a procedural wing. As the kind of aft end heat shielding. This incredibly weird concept.
Alright, so.
I think that is centered enough. Alright, so width root should go down. Width tip should go down. Length should go down to about there. Trailing, I think both these should be biconvex and the same length. And probably here-ish, where I should actually have this piece. Yeah, include the edges in the definition. So I'll have to make sure that this decouples below the wing to reveal the engine inside. Actually, I might just mount the external fuel tank directly to that. Oh no, I'll probably just have both of them separately. All right, so then you surface. Okay, yeah, there we go. We got some thermal tiles over there. Okay, I think there's every chance that this doesn't work. At this point. Alright, so then I would take width at the tip to be a little longer. There we go. That should work for the aft protection section. I can recolor these slightly later. On this incredibly cursed rocket. Trying to think about what sort of a launcher am I going to put this on? Because they'll probably need fuel tanks, but these engines just aren't going to be enough. So I'm probably going to want like additional engines below the launcher, or you know, SRBs mounted to the side as the shuttle did it. Although I guess it would be fun if I mounted the SRBs on the bottom of the vehicle. I could do that. I should do that. The SRBs on the bottom of, or mount a giant SRB on the bottom of the fuel tank, have the smaller engines up top. Help to adjust its path. And then when the SRB separates off, it flies to orbit, or gets
part of the way to orbit on those engines decouples the fuel tank and these engines, and then relies on this engine to get itself to orbit. This is going to be weird. Alright, so... trying to think. So leading edge is here. How do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? So... width? No, that's not what I wanted. I will increase that to my own liking, but it's this I want. It's maybe a little too thick. So let's close these. Actually, no, let's bring this back somewhat. Actually, no, I'm gonna bring it out in two. And I will adjust these so that they're a little bit better, or look a little better in that payload bay. So then you gotta go way forward. What are you? Looks like they're in this position. That's about what I have to get away with, and I'm not going to be able to get away with that, so I'm not going to try it. I will I will put something else there to kind of help, but... Well, I'll put a wing stake in there to fix that weirdness. Right, so then J on this part. Okay, so then this, I want you to go down to 3, 4, 5, and then you go down lower. I will need a top surface to all of this too, which is going to be annoying. And I think you will be just no... Actually, you know what? You'll be no configuration. The wings won't have any fuel or anything inside of them. As tempting as it is. Save at the moment, so just gonna keep the current look. Alright, so then I can actually really bring up the back end of this here. Be a little too far out. bring that back a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna add a wing stake. Not quite that big. No, not that. More like this. I will shift the locations of all these so they look a little better. I probably want to get the flaps on first. No yaw from those. Down. Some things I don't like about uh, the procedural wings is all this weird stuff it does. Right, so now that's kind of in place. What I want to do is I want to. Okay, you are 345 235. So 45 235. And authority limiter should be 30. On this weird thing. Okay, and then I'm just gonna take this, copy it, and basically take the thickness here, turn it to 0. Get rid of the. Want to get rid of the? Probably not. Maybe I just don't care about the bottom section of this. Probably just what I'm gonna do. Seriously? Alright, there we go. Probably will have a tail fin back here. Some description. Need to do a two-section or two-step here. Why I have deleted that piece now. And adjust this down. No, that looks like a good, deorbit vehicle. It's just now dealing with the wingtips here. Which I do have to do, so then that's gotta go there, that's gotta go there. You know what, this will be a short uh, transitionary section. So, whenever that happens, I think I'm gonna need to do a game reboot now. Just because of a bug with P-Wings. Yep. It stopped working now. Great. Great job. Great job, P-Wings. Great job. Um... Seriously? Trying to click on this single piece. Alright, so how thick are you? So this should start out about 235, right? Okay, so offset, tip offset should be there. Alright, I'm actually doing that. get away with this. Oh, hey, Chuck. Thank you for the subscription. Wow. Hold on. That should be higher. Thank you. I was not expecting that. Hello, how's it going? I'm streaming a. Here's money. I'm just streaming a stupid Kerbal thing. So, yeah, building a stupid shuttle. I was doing a rocket tier list earlier today and was like, okay, I have to add something to this stream so I actually get a little bit of substance out of it at the end. Which is what this is. This is the, substance at the end of the stream part. I don't know how much longer I'd hang out. I do have to uncover a bird and visit a bird at some point. Because she needs attention every morning. Yeah, I'll try to stream a lot more, in the near future. I might be able to get another stream in today, a little later on for a game I normally play. Uh, but I'm just doing some of this right now. Let's see, offset tip. Here we go. I think this tip. Alright, yeah. Was where it should have been. Width at the tip should probably be a little lower than. Probably like there. Take one of them in the first badges. For myself. Yeah, I need to get stuff more properly set up here for people subscribing and such still. I still have issues with that not being properly set up. Hey, I guess I'm not really encouraging it though, so right, reduce that length, crease. You know what? Width go down there, width at the tip go down to nothing. You need help? You got your stuff set up? Okay. Yeah. I'll talk to you about that later on. Maybe later today. About that thing. Okay, that should allow me to have some yaw authority. Then here is where we have our rudders. Or not yeah, rudders. Yeah, this is gonna be a neat shuttle-looking thing. I assume, yeah, that's not functional anymore. Alright, hold on, what is this piece? It's 235 to 125. Okay, and then your length should probably be smaller, like maybe more this size. Yeah, that's good. Thanks. Yeah, this is just something weird I'm throwing together. Not even really designed to look all that great. That. Alright, so then you are yaw only. Yeah, this is a weird looking aircraft. Yeah, Hyuto. Alright, so the okay, so yeah, crossfeed's not enabled through that. That's good. Okay, so you need to have a giant decoupler on the bottom here, where your fuel tank is then kept. I might make these a little bigger. I'll go 4.25 with them. No, why don't we go 4.5? Oh, I see what's going on here. There we go. Okay, so I'm saying that's a lot of delta V there. Let's get this recolored. Actually, you know what? I can just do that. That looks about. Uh, it looks a little too light. I'll bring up the detail percentage. There we go, that kind of fits. And then we need a nose cone on top.
Okay. Let's see. So these are slanted that way. So I'm trying to figure out which way this should drain. Do I want it? Which tank do I want to drain from first? Because right now, that sort of mass will shift this way. I think that'll be good enough, especially with some smart gimbal controls. And then I will. This is where the rocket gets weird. Well, even weirder than it already is. I want a decoupler on it. There. And a giant solid rocket booster on the bottom. Now, I'm thinking I'll take one of the earlier SRBs and just scale it. Oh yeah, I disabled tweak scale on accident. This is cursed! Oh, this is so cursed! Oh, this is amazingly cursed. Just launching on this sort of SRB. I'm probably not going to use a mite. Thinking about it, I probably want maybe a flea. What about an upscaled flea? Actually, no, maybe an upscaled hammer. So I think you're seeing the strategy now. With this horrible, horrible, horrible design. Let's paint it. You have the old space shuttle. This is the old space shuttle, but horrendously, horrendously cursed. In like every way possible. Oh, it needs landing gear. Boosters. Oh, there's no two side boosters. None of that. No, I'm not doing that. This serves the same purpose as those two side boosters. We've just mounted it below the external tank instead because I'm horrible. There's part of me which wants to do... My lord, what cursed ship are you making? Oh, see, he knows it's cursed. We could do like a red solid rocket booster down there. Giant red SRB. Alright, let's limit... What's our thrust to weight right now? Okay, so we weigh 500 tons. 100.4 tons. Our thrust is... Alright, so you have... How much thrust? What is our thrust? Okay, so showing our delta V. Oh, there we go. Our TWR is 1.93 on liftoff. TWR is 0.08. Oh, this is so stupid. Oh my god. Oh, we go from 1.93 to 0.8. I mean, that might get better. It probably won't. Oh, this is so stupid. I'm gonna have to swap out those engines. This is the stupidest rocket concept I've ever come up with. Our thrust to weight here is apparently 0. Oh, hold on. In a vacuum. It's apparently 0. Why are you 0? Oh. To set the thrust limiter down. Moron. Thrust to weight is 0.24 up there. That's... I mean, that's what's getting it to orbit. This 0.08 should go up, though, because, Okay, its burn is 2,948 seconds of burn time. Hold on. I need a calculator. Oh, God. So 2,948 seconds. 2,948 divided by 60. That is 49 minutes of burn time. Okay, so I think the conclusion here is that the external tank needs engines. Jesus Christ, dude. Okay. Alright, so what we're gonna do is... Alright. Get me out of this. Close that. Alright, so... What if we did, like, small mainsails here? What are we looking at now? That's now 5.27. That's better. Oh, wait, hold on. Alright. Okay, that's better. 789 second burn. Alright, so then you should probably be thrust limited. You know what? Here's a thought. We set this to 40. Cursed emote. Yes, my emote is very cursed. And then we're gonna have a couple of side rocket boosters, which will be at 100%. Here's an idea. Small Clydesdales on a big flea. Oh my god.
I don't think that's gonna work. I need something which get rid of its thrust a lot more quickly. Those have a burn time of 80 seconds. Burn time of this is 59. Okay, that has a burn time of 24 seconds. Okay, cool. Oh, because that's the same booster. Just doubled. Some Pollux is too long. Maybe a shrimp. That has a 47-second burn time. Okay, I might thrust limit this down to 30, and then have a couple of shrimp at the start. Alright. Our initial thrust to weight is too low. Okay. Now we can add a little aerodynamic nose cone to them. Okay, so thrust to weight starts at 1.13 and it'll go down to 1.24 there. I think that's more acceptable. I mean, I did say I wanted something unique and with some reusability on it, so, I think I've accomplished that. Hold on, this is only latching on one side because I have this oriented the wrong way. I have to orient it like this! For some stupid reason. Well, let's just do this. Okay, so what do I want to do? Auto strut.
Okay, so one more thing I might need is more stabilization down low on launch. Okay, so our center of lift currently is actually pushing us inward. That's fine. It's below our center of mass. That's okay. I don't think we need those. So, how good is my rocket? Should it fly or should it die in fire? Right, it still needs landing gear. Yes. Start retracted. And then what do we want over here? Want like this style landing gear? That one's technically unprotected, so that one would be protected. I have to scale it down though. Okay, so here's my question. Does this have enough delta V to get to orbit? I think the answer is yes. But it might struggle. Alright. The Shuttle is ready to go. Okay, what do you think the chance that this thing... What do you think is the chance that this thing makes orbit on its first try? Because I'm betting no. Although, we need to launch it, or we need to change its trajectory. I think this is the way we need to launch. Alright. Okay, somehow we're holding together right now. We have some monopropellant aboard somewhere. Anyway, let's go. No! No! Okay, so it wasn't an absolute disaster. uh, that's reusable. We did not lose the shuttle.
Yeah. It's just boom. Oh. I have that part deforming mod on. I should probably toggle that off, but this is salvageable. Just like curved out the launch pad went this way. And they're just Jebediah and Bill are just sitting there like, okay, we're fine. So the question was, how badly was that going to go? And the answer was yes. But hey, it didn't result in any fatalities. That's what's important. So I think this is pushing it a little much that way. I'm gonna make these guys bigger. Raise them up. Okay, so we pitched. So when we launched, it pitched over this way. It went. Wait, no. Pitched over this way. That whatever the thrust was pitching too much disoriented. I think I want to just do that. And now we should have a little bit more thrust on liftoff, which will be fun. And then we probably explode again. Because this thing doesn't have much control. Oh, I've also still forgotten to add any monopropellant fuel. Or any way to recharge in orbit. Okay, that tipped over less severely that time. I think he's just like really bad at providing thrust. No, thrust weight's gone up from where it was. Alright, I'm gonna do a small angle that way. I'm gonna need some form of control mechanism, so let's go with some like Vernier engines up top. But some like really big ones. That should steer us. And we probably need some power on board this. So let me stick a couple batteries over here. And oh yeah, the docking ports are miscolored right now just because of the mods I have. The paint mod doesn't make them work. It needs to be fixed. So that's an issue with a mod. Just saying. That's probably where it goes. I'm not gonna add that on yet.
Alright. Let's try again. I might need to add more or strap some engines on the side of the external tank. If I do want this to get to orbit. Alright, let's go. Still pitching over the way I don't want it to pitch over, so let's throw on a couple of additional engines here. Thuds. Thud go like that. Alright. Let's try this again. We're going to toggle on RCS. Alright, very quickly lost control. The thuds did not help. I think I need to put the thuds on the other side. Is more likely to help. There we go. Just a little bit of clearance. Alright. So hopefully that should give me just a little bit more thrust on liftoff, and, you know, hopefully we'll actually go on the right trajectory this time. Hey! We actually have some semblance of control for the moment. We have lifted off on this horrible, horrible contraption. Trying to control the roll. Let me look at the map. Alright, so there's a very good chance that when these boosters separate, they're not going to detach properly. I'm impressed. Good job. Alright. Alright. The SRB's only got us to this altitude. That's not good. Yeah, we're not going to be able to get to space here. Alright. Shutting down, we're going to try tank deployment. I'll try to land it at the very least. Okay, so our rocket's got to get us higher in the atmosphere first. Right. I was like, oh, we're losing meters per second. Why? What's going wrong? We're not losing fuel. We're not having any fuel issues. It's literally just we're going lower in the atmosphere. The engine's becoming less efficient. Alright. Airspeed's being bled. I think we still gotta bleed a little more. Gear down. Brakes on. Holding up. Okay. A little bit of an odd touchdown. We had a little bit of a weird roll there. Gear's acting a little strange on us. Especially with this forward gear. Hey, good landing. So the Hyetl part of the Hyetl orbiter works, but the actual like launch vehicle doesn't. And I think we need a larger. I think the issue is we need a larger SRB on the bottom. I think if we had a larger SRB, which could just get us higher into the atmosphere, that would help so much with this. So that needs to be deleted. Solid rocket booster. These things. So I'm thinking about a thoroughbred. Alright, so then how long would that burn for? That would be 1.37 and an 80-second burn. I think that would do better than what we previously had. just on its own. And that still gets a 418-second burn up here. I have a weird... Can't do that because it would... I can put it about here-ish, I think. There we go. That reduces the burn time. I think I need to kick those more back that way. Okay, there we go. There's this incredibly cursed vehicle. Although now we might have a problem with the center of lift compared to the center of mass. So I think I am going to want to put a set of wings down here. Oh no, it's not giving me as much as I was expecting. All right, let's get this to orbit. $60. Right. Here we go. Alright, so we're already having some issues with wobble. So we need to stop them from wobbling. Alright, there we go. You know what? Let's go with that and then shut down these engines at a specific time. Or what if we just detach these engines? Like, oh, what if we... Oh, here's the idea. these engines detach with the booster. And that has crossfeed enabled. Alright. Kettle Mark II ready to go. This is still probably the worst thing I've come up with. Alright. Shaky, let's go. Oh my god, the little thrust! Oh, the little thruster drink skill isn't working properly with that. Alright. Hold up. We're having issues still. So, I think I need to angle these more. And, you need grandparent part and a rigid attachment. And I'll increase their size to that. Alright, time to see if this works a little better. This is horrible. This rocket is legitimately horrible. It is an affront to the senses. Alright, let's go. Oh yeah. I need RCS on. I think these guys are producing a little bit too much thrust. Right, rocket has passed through the transonic regime. Altitude is continuing to increase. Heating is continuing to increase. It's nice having engines have burned off. That's not part of the plan. SRB has the SRB separated. Alright. Having a weird roll. We're gonna try to stabilize this. Now, one issue is we don't have rotational roll control. Re-angling back on target. Okay. We have an imbalance. In order for this to be doing this, we must have an imbalance of fuel. Now the good news is this is still going to increase our orbit. And we have enough juice in our upper stage to be able to get to orbit anyways, so. I'm just gonna burn through this and see how high we can get. This could be a moon shuttle. Alright, you know what? That's too high of an altitude. Alright, stay prograde. This won't burn us perfectly prograde. So in terms of the amount of energy we now have, it's kind of absurd. I'm just gonna detach. Alright. Point me retrograde. We need to deorbit. Okay, so I would say that this spacecraft is not successful, but technically kind of is, because we can get to orbit with it. Okay, you know what? Point prograde. We're a little bit too far in the atmosphere there. Okay. Warp us around. Point retrograde. Which we're already pointed. Okay, cool. Oh, we have more liquid fuel than oxidizer. One of these tanks must be full. Yeah, that one's full. Oops. Alright. So we're just gonna land this wherever we see fit. We don't have much Delta V. But we can get our periaps to about 40,000 meters. And hopefully that'll allow for a good re-entry. And we can put it down just wherever we please. Alright, we have no more momentum anymore. Alright, so we're stuck with whatever we have. At this point, wait until we hit the atmosphere. So we do have the desert launch site, but it's probable we'll come down over the ocean here. Hey, we get to test re-entry now. So I need to check the F3 menu. What happened? So they got damage. Oh, structural failure on the linkage. Okay. Thoroughbred was damaged. Yeah, so I think it was just issues. What standard nose cone did these... Are these guys damaged? Yeah, we just had a structural failure. Oh, might have been the two things around there. Oh, no. Okay. Wrap-ups is going down. Alright, you know what? I'm going somewhat nose down for this. So, though, this is a little stupid that this worked. So, the reason I'm going more nose in is I'm trying to stretch to see if I can make the Space Center. But I'm still wanting to go somewhat nose up so we still bleed more of our velocity. There we go. Because we gotta cross this ocean if we want to make the Space Center again. Oh, I don't think we'll make the Space Center. Alright, bleed as much velocity as you can, so at least we can try to land in the desert, if necessary. If I'd managed this a little more carefully, we might have been able to make this Space Center. Oh, we're popping back up. Alright, bleed off as much velocity as possible. Still got some electric charge left. If possible, I want to divert this way. At some point I need to do another Kerbal campaign again, and just see if I can get stuff to work a little better than the previous one. Alright, so we're still bleeding off a lot of momentum here. Ooh, can I open these? Bleed off more momentum? Oh yeah, that helps. I want to go up here. Alright, we're descending again. Okay. A sharp pull. One more sharp pull. Come on, you can do it. Right. Sharp pull over this way. So it looks like we're going to be able to land somewhere in the desert. Close and close. Okay, we're starting to hit a little bit of a thicker layer of atmosphere now. We've directed the momentum in the direction we wanted in. And we got this nice soft desert to land on. Okay. Come on, let's get us to a more pitch-up angle. To a shallower glide slope. Because I think this thing does seem to glide pretty well. So I guess the good thing with this shuttle is it's not fatal. It's not a fatal design. It's not a design which is easy to kill the crew in. It's a design which is very easy to make them dizzy in, but, you know, that was a fairly good launch. Well, I mean, other than all of the issues we had. But we got to orbit. We got to a pretty high orbit and have now successfully deorbited. And are now going to come down for a landing. Not at all where intended, but... yeah. Not bad. That could have gone a lot worse. Now someone's just gonna have to find Jebediah and Bill in this damn desert. So yeah, hopefully I'll start a new Kerbal campaign sometime. The last one I had some mod issues with, which was why I abandoned it. Hopefully, I'll have to check if those mod issues are still there, because I don't want to abandon another one. But it is... I'm still worried that the mods could pose an issue. Because there are specific mods which I pretty much, you know, want to play with at all times, and if I'm doing career. And I'm a little concerned that those are going to have problems. Okay. Soft touchdown, 40 meters per second. A little bit of a fall there. Could have been better. But you know, that's fine. We made it. I'm still trying to figure out what weird thing happened, because our we had a structural failure between our rocket booster and the decoupler. Rocket booster late into structural failure late into launch. But you know, we did it. We got to orbit and we landed. Yeah. As a space plane, this is pretty good. A space plane, I think this design works pretty well. As a shuttle, it's a little more questionable. And as a rocket, yeah, it needs a better launch vehicle. I'll have to keep that in mind, though, to build something like that for the main campaign, whenever I do that again.
So, anyways, thank you all for watching this really weird stream where I did a rocket tier list and then this, and I will, yeah, I'll see you guys next time. If you want to get linked to the socials, I got my Discord, YouTube, and Twitter in the description. Well, if you're on YouTube, they're in the description below, but not a YouTube link, it would be a Twitch link instead. And if you're on Twitch, like my audience currently is, all those would be down little slightly in the profile. There's a image you can click on for each of them. If you need a specific link, you basically have, or if you're on mobile, you basically have to ask me to provide it to you, because for whatever reason, my artistic dreams don't work. My artistic stuff with Twitch doesn't work for that. So, yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you guys next time for whatever that stream is. Could be later today, although I think my throat's already become a little bit sore, so maybe not. Alright, bye!